Direct from our newsroom in New York, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Eric Severide in Washington, Roger Mudd in Washington, Morton Dean in Portland, Oregon, John Hart in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Robert Shackney in New York, and Josh Darsa in New York.
Good evening. Developments today seem to erase any remaining doubt that for the first time since 1795, the Senate will reject a nominee for Chief Justice of the United States. Abe Fortas's chance of winning confirmation already were extremely slim, and then today, Republican leader Everett Dirksen changed his position. Roger Mudd reports.
Everett Dirksen went off the Senate's high board today and executed what might be called a political 1.5 gainer. He told reporters he is now neutral on the Fortas nomination and will definitely vote against ending the filibuster. That vote is now scheduled for 1 p.m. Tuesday. Dirksen denied he had flip-flopped, but those senators who have been counting noses all expressed amazement, some even shock. Philip Hart, the Michigan Democrat who is managing the nomination, first said he was surprised and disappointed. He later changed that to disappointed but not surprised. Majority Leader Mansfield, asked if Dirksen's defection will hurt, replied, "It sure as hell will." Dirksen, up for re-election and sensitive to the opinion of the Illinois Bar and Bench, said his new position is based on a Supreme Court decision in which Fortas voted with the majority. CBS News learned that decision is the so-called Witherspoon case, in which the court held it is unconstitutional to exclude automatically from jury duty persons opposed to capital punishment. Because of the Witherspoon case involving the murder of a young Chicago policeman, 24 men now facing the death penalty in Illinois might now seek an appeal. One of those 24 is Richard Speck, convicted 2 years ago of killing 8 Chicago student nurses. The Speck case, which was heard on appeal before the Illinois Supreme Court just last Wednesday, is political dynamite in Dirksen's state. CBS News learned, in addition, that on Wednesday, the Chief Justice of the Illinois Court, Roy J. Salfisberg, called Dirksen's office to alert the senator to Fortas's vote in the Witherspoon decision. Dirksen conceded today that opposing Fortas will not relieve the political pressure on the Illinois court, but it would register his protest to what he considers to be a bad decision. Whether there is more to Dirksen's turnabout than meets the eye is probably immaterial. The effect is fatal to the Fortas nomination. Roger Mudd, CBS News, Washington.
In Vietnam, enemy troops striking from Cambodia tried today to overrun 2 Allied outposts that guard infiltration routes to Saigon and the Mekong Delta. But they were driven back in both cases, losing 276 men killed. The defenders reported only 11 fatalities, all South Vietnamese. U.S. commanders, commenting on the seemingly futile attacks, said the communists may still be trying to draw more Allied troops away from Saigon to make it more vulnerable to another Viet Cong offensive. At Da Nang, a 26-year-old Marine from Dothan, Alabama, PFC Robert Vickers was convicted of murder today in the deaths of 2 Vietnamese civilians and sentenced to life imprisonment. Vickers is one of 7 Marines charged in the slayings last May. 2 others received lesser sentences, and the remaining 4 have yet to be tried. South Vietnam's President Thieu said today he's sending an envoy to Thailand to invite exiled General Duong Van Minh to return home. Minh, known as Big Minh, left the country in 1964 after losing his post as chief of state. But he remains a popular figure in South Vietnam, and Thieu said he would like Minh to serve as one of his top political advisors.
How many pain relievers do you know of that give you a second dose of pain reliever during the night while you sleep? Measurin does, the first pain reliever with a built-in second dose. Measurin contains a double dose of aspirin in timed release form, so you take it once every 8 hours instead of every 4. Gives maximum nighttime pain relief. Helps you wake without stiffness. That's timed release Measurin, the convenient pain reliever with a built-in second dose for a long-lasting pain relief.
When you have acid indigestion, every second counts. So count on instant-acting Phillips tablets. Phillips tablets go to work in seconds. With one of the fastest stomach settlers ever discovered, each small Phillips tablet neutralizes more excess stomach acid than the leading antacid tablet that comes in a roll. So for fast relief from acid-upset stomach, when every second counts, count on instant-acting Phillips tablets.
The presidential campaign today featured a long-range debate over presidential debates. From Portland, Oregon, Vice President Humphrey issued another challenge to Richard Nixon.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Mr. Nixon to come on a platform like this. I think you ought to ask him. I've been asking him. Why can't we have national debates along the style of the Lincoln-Douglas debates? Why shouldn't the American people hear from Mr. Nixon, Mr. Wallace, and myself at the same time? Why shouldn't we be able to come to Portland? You've got a fine auditorium here. You have television and the national networks. They wouldn't miss it, you know. It'd be just too much fun. And besides that, it'd be free. It'd be on them. Instead of on some of us having to go around and ask you to contribute to our campaign coffers. In all candor, I think the time has arrived in a city, in a country of over 200 million people, where we have the media that we are privileged to have today, where candidates quit acting like they're running around, playing games with each other, talking to partisan audiences. I think we ought to have the candidates side by side, sitting up here just as these men are here, and we take our turn on a subject like this, present our case, answer your questions, and you go out of here like a jury and make your own decision.
Humphrey has been all fired up over this debate issue for weeks now and is especially miffed today. In a talk prepared for tonight, he scornfully labels Nixon as the Shadow and Brand X. Where is he, Humphrey taunts? Where is the Shadow? When will you meet with me somewhere that the American people can look at both of us? Hubert Humphrey on the attack. It's been just about that way at almost every campaign stop. Morton Dean, CBS News, with the Humphrey campaign in Portland, Oregon.
Richard Nixon, campaigning in the South, made clear today his position on debates, and at a news conference in Louisville, Kentucky, had this to say about Humphrey's tactics.
Of course, he's already indicated, too, that because he's behind, that he's now going to really put on a real charge. He says, I'm going to win like Truman did in 1948. That also is before most of you were born. Well, I'll tell you, I don't think it's going to work for a number of reasons, but the main reason is this. It's one thing to give him hell, but it's something else to give him Humphrey, believe me.
This is Richard Nixon debating Hubert Humphrey from afar and from his own platform. It may well be the only kind of debate this year. It is like a debate in that Nixon is no longer simply attacking, he is responding to Humphrey's words and acts. This time, the act of getting UN Ambassador George Ball for his campaign.
He has no choice but to continue the policies of the past. And now he has confirmed that. He has confirmed that because he has taken on as his top foreign policy advisor one of the architects of that policy, Mr. Ball. And so what do we find? It's the same men. It's the same policies. He has not yet, in any particular instance, indicated one disagreement with any of the policies of the past 4 years.
The debates are Humphrey's issue, not Nixon's. But Nixon now finds it necessary to counterpunch, saying he would debate only on television, only after Congress clears the way, and only if George Wallace were left out, an unlikely prospect at the moment, since a House committee already voted Wallace in. And Nixon's aides are now saying it might be tough to work a debate into the schedule.
Well, Mr. Nixon, is it your feeling, then, that Mr. Humphrey needs the debate exposure with you, and you just don't need it?
Well, Mr. Humphrey needs, apparently, the debate exposure for Mr. Wallace. I think now what is really coming through is that he has decided that he cannot win what he calls the New South. This means absolutely. This is sort of the kid stuff that somebody goes through when he's behind. He knows very well that my public position on debates and his public position, and when he wires me, challenging me to debate, he's out there just thrashing in the wind.
Yet it was the mouth of one of his advisors which said, it is our job to win this campaign, and of the debates, we don't need them. John Hart, CBS News, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
The Humphrey camp today also proposed an alternative plan for televised debates. Campaign manager Lawrence O'Brien suggests that Humphrey and Nixon together buy television time for a face-to-face meeting, and O'Brien asked Nixon to name somebody to discuss it. George Wallace, who has been taking a rest from the campaign, resumes political activity next week with a tour through industrial cities in 7 northern and midwestern states.
We took some Buick owners and gave them a preview of the 1969 Buick Sport Wagon. What did they like?
Everything. Everything is nice.
It's hard to put the adjective for the car itself. It's fantastic, I guess that's what you'd say.
I'm just impressed, I guess.
I could get my a whole baseball team in there.
I'm for the automatic lock. This, to me, is the greatest. I think that all the safety features on the Buick are a good idea.
I really like that new door in the 69 Sportswagen.
It's easier to get the children in and out. It's easier to get the groceries in and out. And I lug a three-wheeler bike with me. And that bike is going to go in and out real slick. I'm enthusiastic about that. That's the whole thing for me. Well, I would like that car.
Well, that makes two of us.
Buick owners keep selling Buicks for us. Wouldn't you really rather have a 1969 Buick Sport Wagon?
Outgoing UN Ambassador George Ball, who was the administration's resident dove on Vietnam, is wasting no time in his new role as campaigner for Hubert Humphrey. Ball, who coupled his resignation announcement with an attack on Nixon, today had a few things to say about Nixon's running mate, Governor Spiro Agnew.
The preposterous idea that a fourth-rate hack politician like Agnew might stand within a heartbeat of the presidency, I think this is fantastic. And it demonstrates a cynicism and irresponsibility which seem to me rather shocking.
At his New York News conference, Ball also was asked whether he thinks Senator Eugene McCarthy will support Humphrey.
Well, I don't know. He hasn't given much indication. I would certainly hope that he will come out for Vice President, support of Vice President Humphrey, and I believe he will. I believe he will, simply because he's a responsible man, and when he looks at the alternatives, he hasn't any choice, has he?
Governor Agnew was in Washington today addressing the National Press Club, and he kidded himself about some of his verbal blunders of the campaign trail. In his words, you have your good days and you have your bad days. Agnew, who is of Greek descent, was asked about the military-backed government in Greece that seized power last April. And he said the regime, as he put it, has not proven itself as horrendous a specter to contemplate as most people thought it would be. He also said one of the chief opponents of the junta is a communist, but he did not identify him. American Motors announced today its 1969 list prices will go up an average of $43 a car, the lowest price hike in the industry. Unlike the big three, the American price boost includes federal taxes, dealer charges, and the cost of front seat headrests. The other automakers are charging $16 or $17 extra for those headrests, which will be required by law after January 1st. Besides raising prices, the auto companies also are cutting back their new car warranties. In recent years, warranties covered parts exclusive of engine and transmission for 24 months or 24,000 miles. Now, those same warranties will apply only for 12 months or 12,000 miles. The Federal Trade Commission estimates that the industry may be saving itself $300 million this year by making that change. Prices closed slightly higher today on the New York Stock Exchange. The volume was 13,860,000 shares. The exchange index gained 2 cents.
You're about to see why Bad Breath Anonymous was formed.
Boy, you got bad breath.
Oh, honey, you've got bad breath. Because telling friends, relatives, and loved ones that they've got bad breath is risky. It's also embarrassing, cruel.
You got bad breath.
And very unrewarding. That's why Scope Mouthwash created Bad Breath Anonymous. Send us the name of someone with bad breath, and we'll break the news to them. And send them a coupon good for 10 cents off on Scope. Remember, Scope first thing in the morning will make their breath feel fresher for hours. Don't take any unnecessary risks.
Marcel, you have bad breath.
Send those names to Bad Breath Anonymous. New York, New York.
In Oakland, California today, Black Panther leader Huey Newton was sentenced to 2 to 15 years in prison for killing a policeman. The judge declined to free him in bail for an appeal, and authorities immediately took Newton to prison. A congressional conference committee reportedly has adopted legislation to sharply cut back federal school desegregation efforts. The provision, almost certain to cause a Senate floor fight, would forbid withholding funds from school districts to force busing of students, to close a school, or to require any child to attend a particular school against the wishes of the parents. Sources said the legislation was adopted as a rider to a compromise appropriation bill late last night. In New York City today, there were conflicting reports of progress in settling a teacher's strike that has closed the nation's largest school system. The racially tinged dispute involves city school officials, the teachers' union, and a locally controlled experimental school district. CBS News correspondent Robert Shackney reports.
It's now been 3 weeks of school strike, and tempers are growing shorter. White parents picketing Mayor Lindsay's mansion. Black teachers, black parents hear language that grows increasingly more militant by the day.
This is the school where the argument began, and ironically, it's one of the few schools in New York City that's still operating and has operated for the past 3 weeks.
In all 8 schools of the largely Negro Ocean Hill-Brownsville demonstration district, classes are said to be functioning normally, with about 200 old teachers and some 350 new ones, most of them white and most of them young, and all hired by the locally elected school board. That's the argument. The new teachers replace members of the union now on strike, and the union wants 100 of them back. To black militants like former school supervisor Herman Ferguson, who's facing a jail term on murder conspiracy charges, the need is for total black control of schools.
And once we're able to do that, we can then decide when we need to have new school buildings built, where they need to be built, who is going to build them for us, and best of all, most important of all, who is going to come into those buildings after they've been built and teach our children. And once we do that, we can then begin to do something about the curriculum, the things that our children are exposed to.
To the largely white teaching establishment and to many white parents, the experiment with locally elected school boards means that black militants are dictating policy and ignoring law. Racial attitudes are heartening. This group of middle-class parents demanding that the mayor close down the Ocean Hill schools, fire that local school board. Education has been a makeshift thing for about 95% of New York's 1,200,000 school children. But some schools are open. This is where local school boards are in operation, where there's strong parent organization. Not all teachers share the same view about the strike call of the union.
Maria, how many floors in 38?
Everyone has the right to be on any side they want to, but basically I disagree so strongly with the union position. I feel the union is using this as a cover for a complete power play in the school system.
Mrs. Fisher said that the union is using this issue as a power play in this city. Is this your opinion?
Everyone wants power. Our union is trying to defend its member. If that means to have power, if this is power play, I welcome this power play of our union.
To teacher union leader Albert Shanker, the issue is basic. The old teachers who want to return to Ocean Hill-Brownsville must go back.
What are the issues, the basic issues, that the union sees in this strike after 3 weeks?
I think the basic issues are the right of a person who has been on the job to receive charges, to know why he is being pushed out of a job, and have the right to an impartial trial. I think that's one issue. I think the second basic issue which has emerged is the whole question of local compliance to rules and regulations. That is, Alabama and Mississippi have to comply with the United States Supreme Court rulings. And the question now is whether Ocean Hill-Brownsville has to comply with a contract that's centrally negotiated and with the rules and regulations of a Board of Education, the City of New York, and the State Department of Education. Essentially, they're declaring that they're sort of seceding. They have their own district, and they don't care what the central rules and regulations are. They're really sort of saying we have a separate nation of our own. I think that's a very basic issue. It's part of the entire separatist movement.
Rhodey McCoy, the locally appointed school administrator for Ocean Hill-Brownsville.
The basic issue is very simple. It's does a duly elected community board have the right to decide which personnel it shall employ in its district, which personnel it will retain, and which personnel it will dismiss?
Are there any circumstances where you can envisage that the dismissed teachers or the transferred teachers can come back, the 110, can come back and function in your school system?
Unfortunately, at this time, I don't believe so.
There's so much hostility, so much bitterness. Is it practical for these teachers, some of whom are very strong union members, to go back? How practically can they go back unless you were to eliminate the whole local governing structure in Brooklyn, in the experimental district?
I think it's just as practical for those teachers to go back and function in those schools as it was to send black children into white schools in Little Rock and New Orleans, or to send James Meredith into the University of Mississippi. I think it's going to be very uncomfortable for those teachers for a while, just as it was uncomfortable for these black students in the South. But I think it's absolutely necessary, and for precisely the same reasons.
An argument over teacher jobs, polarizing the races in the supposedly liberal city as never before.
1968 represents the last time the UFT will strike against our children, because God gave Noah the rainbow sign. No more water, fire next time.
Because this is not a conventional labor dispute, it's hard to see a conventional compromise labor solution. The longer the strike lasts, the longer the argument remains unsettled, the less it becomes a labor matter, the less it becomes a school matter, and the more it turns into a confrontation between the white community of New York against the black community. Robert Shackney, CBS News, New York.
Classes were held without incident in Boston today after a week of protests, student boycotts, and some violence, all an outgrowth of a dispute over Negro students wearing African-style clothes. From Prague, CBS News correspondent Daniel Shore reports tonight that Russia now is insisting on the removal of Czechoslovak communist leader Alexander Dubček, and the Prague government reportedly is prepared to go a long way toward meeting that demand. Shore says it has worked out a proposal under which the reform-minded Dubček would be switched to the chairmanship of the party's Central Committee, a post with little authority. His job as party boss would go to Premier Aldrich Chernik, who is much more acceptable to Moscow. Shore reports that the Russians will be sounded out on the proposal within the next few days. Russia told Czechoslovakia again today to muzzle its press, warning that the idea of freedom of the press is strictly bourgeois and against the teachings of Lenin. But the Czechoslovaks were not listening, at least not today. Prague newspapers, in fact, were filled with attacks against the rigidly censored newspapers of the Warsaw Pact invasion powers, accusing them of printing lies and slanders against Czechoslovakia. France again today rejected Britain's entry into the European Common Market, arguing as before that Britain's economy is not sound enough for membership. This time it was a West German plan supporting Britain that was rejected. And the French veto at a Brussels meeting came shortly before President de Gaulle flew into Bonn for what are certain to be some difficult talks with West German leaders. Not only are these differences on market policies, de Gaulle also disagrees with the West German view that the NATO alliance should be strengthened as a result of the Soviet bloc invasion of Czechoslovakia. Portugal's new premier, Marcelo Caetano, hinted today that he may not continue all of the rigid autocratic policies of the Salazar era. Caetano, while promising to keep faith with basic Salazar doctrines, indicated he would carry out some reforms. He did not go into specifics.
When a man is all man, a woman becomes all woman. Redwood by Aquavelva is all man.
To make a woman feel all woman.
Redwood is all man.
To make a woman feel all woman.
Redwood, the exciting new aftershave by Aquavelva. Try it.
I cut my smoking in half.
I quit smoking altogether.
I stopped smoking and I didn't gain weight.
People everywhere who want real help are breaking the cigarette habit with this medicated lozenge called Nicoban. Nicoban was developed by a doctor to help people cut down on smoking, often without gaining weight. Doctors have been recommending Nicoban for years to help satisfy tobacco hunger, help control appetite, too. For real help breaking the cigarette habit, try Nicoban. Nicoban sure beats smoking.
The Senate Appropriations Committee has approved and sent to the Senate a foreign aid spending bill of $1.9 billion. That totals $313 million more than the House approved, but it still is the lowest amount in the 21-year history of the foreign aid program. To Washington now, and Eric Severide for some thoughts on domestic politics in relation to the international scene. Eric?
Each of the two major party presidential candidates has now committed himself to a root and branch re-examination of American foreign policy if he goes to the White House in January. This is what an existing administration defending its own record cannot or does not do. It would be easier for Mr. Nixon to do it than for Humphrey, but Mr. Humphrey has given notice of his intentions in this respect by taking into his campaign staff our last two UN ambassadors, Goldberg and Ball. Goldberg disagrees with the present administration on how to get a settlement in Vietnam. Ball disagrees with the overall worldview of Secretary of State Rusk. Both these men, and Humphrey by implication, would apparently be far more cautious in committing American power and promises abroad. And all are aware that one of the original purposes behind the Vietnam intervention, to impress and restrain potential aggressors elsewhere, has backfired on us by diminishing our will and capacity for future interventions. Events oblige a fundamental reappraisal in respect to Europe as well as East Asia. De Gaulle has rather effectively taken France and her real estate out of the Atlantic Alliance defense arrangement. The military lineup in Central Europe has been altered by the Russian invasion of Czechoslovakia and the stationing of heavier Russian forces along the borders of West Germany. The full scope of Russian intentions still seems uncertain, but in high circles here the sense of foreboding has not diminished. Moscow has increased its pressures on West Germany and may well have begun a new long-range campaign to detach that country from the Western Alliance. And on top of all this, Madrid has now denounced its treaties with us, under which we keep air and naval bases in Spain. An effort to revive the agreements will be made, but the prospects for success look very thin. The likelihood of our military retirement from Spain 18 months from now is real. Spain does not have the protection enjoyed by European nations who are members of the Western Alliance, and neither the Johnson administration nor the Congress are in any mood to add another formal commitment of automatic American action in case Spain is attacked. Nor will they lay out the funds the Spanish believe necessary for their own armed forces if they must defend themselves. On present evidence, then, Spain seems to be moving toward neutralism. In the long run, this may be just as well. But as of now, neither Washington nor Madrid is very happy about it. And this represents one more unraveling of our security strategies that the new administration will inherit. Walter?
And that's the way it is. Friday, September 27th, 1968. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Marine deck stain. Bake. Coffee. Sweat. Tomato sauce. Guess which stain Ajax 2 won't get out. Ajax 2, the detergent so strong you can use half the bleach you usually use. Now, which stain? If you guessed the marine deck stain, you were right. Ajax 2 won't get that out. But we're working on it.
Ultra Bright toothpaste, a taste you can really feel. Ultra Bright gives your mouth sex appeal.
Ultra Bright.